Hello and welcome to the Hoop Troop podcast. I am Matt O'Connor, and joining me as they do on all of our shows, my cousin Luke Drobner
What's up, guys?
and my brother Mike O'Connor.
Luke is wearing a Washington Wizards Porzingis jersey. That's all I
Just
have to say.
absolutely shameful. I mean, my God. Although
I told
honestly,
it
the Porzingis is having the redemptive arc right now, so maybe Luke is just ahead of the curve.
it was a gift, and I wanted to respect it, and I did tell the gift giver that I did tell my dad that Porzingis is somewhat of a villain in New York, but no,
It's
I
the
mean,
thought that counts.
at
It's
the
a cool thing.
deadline, people were the chatter on the internet around Porzingis near the deadline. It seemed like people were willing to forgive. So you never know. You could just be ahead of it. You
I hope
honestly,
I
the
am.
jersey could absolutely go up in value. I mean, he's having probably his best season since that one as a Knick. So
I will also mention that I have collected some jerseys, and almost every jersey I have, they've gotten traded. I have like Kyrie Cavs, Paul George Pacers, James Harden Rockets.
Those are
So
but that
those are
James
cool.
Harden Rocket one might come back to be valuable again this summer with all the
maybe,
rumors swirling.
and then
But
Embiid will be a Nick.
maybe. I mean, I don't know. A lot's up in the air, especially if they burn out. But I think it's a good segue into what we were going to talk about today. We have about 15, 20 games left for everyone, just roughly. So we want to take a look at the beginning of the season. We did a chart. We looked at who were going to be the top 10 or so in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Then we gave our predictions for, who's going to advance and win the finals, as well as the regular season awards. So now with most of the games wrapped up, and I'm assuming very little variability down the stretch here in the last, less than a quarter of games left. We could probably get into it, have a little more accurate guess of how everything's going to unfold, but also just talk through some of the major things going on. So we agreed walking in here that the West is where it's at right now. It's way more fun talking about the West. So we'll start there. I think it goes without saying now, it seems like they're safely going to lock it in. The Nuggets are going to be the one seed, right?
Gotta be.
Across
I
the board,
can't.
I think we agree. Their schedule is about to get very easy. I don't think they play any of these like title contenders in their next like 10 games. So I really do think they're going to wrap this thing up. But it gets so much more fun at two.
Do the Nuggets have the best record? I'm curious.
Yes. No.
Wow.
No,
Because
they have
that was my opening of the season guess on the original sheet that the
they're
Nuggets have the best.
45 and 19. The Bucks are 45 and 18.
So
The
half a game
Celtics are
ahead.
also 45 and 19. So those three teams have far and away the best records. The next closest is the 76ers, actually, who are 3.5 games back of them. So yeah. But anyway, I do think the Nuggets realistically are safe in the West. I mean, they have a 6-game lead on the number 2 Grizzlies. I can't imagine them closing that gap, especially amid all the crap that's going on around them right now. Which we got to talk about. We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
I know we talked about the whole Pacers incident when, apparently Ja's team was like flashing a laser pointer at like Pacers assistants, and everyone was like, it's kind of dumb. Is that true? But now, like, stories keep coming out of Ja like roughing people up.
The circus keeps getting bigger. When the first allegation comes out, or like the first like bad media that comes out of your locker room, like you hope to like stop it right there and end it. But I feel like we just continue to snowball into something bigger and bigger, and obviously it's led to Ja Morant's 2-game suspension.
Oh yeah, and it's him technically. I don't know that it's like so much a suspension as it is like he's stepping away. It almost feels like a PR thing. Like it really feels like they're like, all right, look, stop showing your gun on Instagram Live. Like maybe don't beat up a 17-year-old allegedly. Obviously nothing's been confirmed. Like maybe don't do those things. He's going to step away for a few games. It sounds like it's going to be 2, maybe a few more. It seemed like it was like an indefinite thing, but at least 2 games. They are in a weird spot though, where they can't really afford to be losing games. They're only a game and a half up on the Kings right now.
Yeah.
And
It's
they're
also
going to be
important to mention that they're without Brandon Clark now for the season, who's going to end up missing like a whole year, maybe even more. And then
torn
Dylan Brooks with the
ACL.
technicals. Yeah.
And I mean, Steven Adams has been out. Like they've had guys in and out of the lineup all year. It's been a weird season for them. And so I think there is a chance they fall off. I also think that this like could greatly affect chemistry down the stretch. with a lot of, I mean, I know we always say it, a lot of like the out of basketball, like truly the things that happen off the court, it can have such a dramatic impact on what actually takes place in just every game. And this feels like one of those things that it's such a big distraction for their best player that it really could affect them and how they play and how he specifically plays. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely was skeptical of the Grizzlies going into the year. I think our chart probably reflects that. And honestly, if we went back to that episode, I know I was saying like I could see them missing the I think we did. Yeah. I think I did say I was gonna have them in the play in or something. But yeah, I do. I totally am I'm out on the Grizzlies this season. Just from every possible angle.
What is this a story of? Like, I just don't understand how this happened. Like, who's
I don't understand the why. Like, why is he doing this? You're literally in line to make hundreds of millions of dollars throughout your career. Like, why? Why are you doing it? You have no reason to be doing this.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that he's what, 22, something like
He's
that.
young. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I'm 22, I'm sure my head wasn't fully on my shoulders, and obviously,
but if you were making millions of dollars, you wouldn't be making this glare. It's not, Luke. Your head was on your shoulders. Like, you would get like, I don't know. Yeah. When I was 22, I was like getting hammered and like whatever, and doing like dumb stuff.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
He's beating up a 17-year-old kid allegedly, and like threatening a security guard at a mall, and like
I mean,
these aren't things that I ever in a million years would have done.
When I was 22, I'd get angry about stupid stuff like a basketball game, right? So like, yeah, the kid was 17, but like when like stuff like that happens all the time to regular people. It just so happens to be that John Morant needs to be a role model because he does make all this money, and being face in the NBA means a lot. So. The spotlight was on him, and obviously, like it takes away from your team. And in my opinion, I don't know if the Grizzlies will ever come back. I think between them pretty much making themselves become a villain within the whole NBA, and then on top of all this stuff that's going on off the court, I just and losing a piece like Brandon Clark for a full year, right? Like, what does that do to your team next year? I understand you have Steven Adams and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Xavier Tillman, but like Brandon Clark played valuable minutes for them every day. So
totally. And the other layer on all of this that I think it's a little funny. It's awful. I feel bad for them, but like Nike, my God, what a horrible stretch for their shoe deals. After having to drop Kyrie at the beginning of the year for his stuff, then they were like, all right, we got Ja now, and they launched his new shoe and everything. And literally it did not even take a full season for that now to be in jeopardy. And they had to put out a statement about all this. Like, it is just like, you can't make this up. That's why I love the NBA. There's always something. There's always drama. There's always something going on.
I mean, the guards sell shoes, right? Like when you think about like Steph Curry's and you want to think about like these electrifying athletic guards, and so it was the right guy to sign historically, but obviously didn't work out.
I also think they're going to put him around the right people. Like his agents and everything are going to get him back on track, and like this isn't going to be a long-term issue. I can't imagine it is, and if it is, then that's telling, because I mean he is getting a second chance here by like them being like, all right, take a few games off and then come back. So like, yeah, I do think he'll figure it out. If not, though, that could be it for him. Like it really could. So I don't know, but in any event, back to basketball. I think the Grizzlies, realistically, I can't envision them falling down to 4. I mean, they're 3.5 games ahead of the Suns, and like I don't think they're going to lose that much to the point that a 3.5 game difference is going to happen now in the last 15, 20 games.
Can we agree that the Kings will be here at 2, though?
I think the Kings will pass them. I do.
What about the Suns?
That's what I'm saying. Do you think they're going to fall 3.5 games to the Suns? I know the Suns are great, and like they've shown they have this potential to like really go on a run here.
I think they could. Ja misses 2. They're playing the Clippers and someone else.
Yeah.
Like unless Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to all of a sudden become like this all NBA guy.
Why couldn't the Suns be the 2 seed is what I'm saying.
I could see that. I just don't think they'll pass the Kings. I think if the Kings just keep playing their game, I don't think there'll be enough time for the Suns to pass them.
They're 3.5 games back out of 2. And like, do you really expect them to catch both teams ahead of them?
I mean, the Grizzlies.
It's a tall order. In a short amount of time, that's a tall order. That's more why. I think they're better than both teams ahead of them, without question. Like, I would be much more afraid of the Suns in the playoffs than I would either of those teams. But that said, like you do kind of dig your. It's almost like how we talk about the Lakers being like at the beginning of the year they dug that hole. They're playing so much better now, even without LeBron. But they dug their hole. Like they're not going to be able to move up. Granted, they're a scary first round matchup or a play-in matchup for some team, but like it's the same thing with the Suns now. I don't know that they're going to be able to get up to the 2.
Here we go. The Suns, their next game is Wednesday against Oklahoma City. They're going to win.
Yeah,
Saturday, March 11th, they're playing the Kings. So
it's a big game. It's a big game.
So they could jump one game up in the standings, basically.
Yeah.
How many times do they play the Kings again?
Let me pull up the
they
schedule.
play Sacramento at the end of March.
Wow. Yeah, they're.
I could see it then.
See,
If
but
they can
listen,
beat the Kings twice, they could definitely move up into
There
second.
their
are
remaining schedule is pretty brutal. I got to be honest. I just pulled it up.
Who are they playing?
So I'll rattle them off. So Oklahoma City, Sacramento, Golden State, Milwaukee, Orlando, Oklahoma City again, the Lakers, the Kings again, the 76ers, the Jazz, the Timberwolves, Denver, the Thunder again, San Antonio, then Denver, and both LA teams to end the year. Most of those games are hard. I think there's only 5 of those games that are true, like they're going to win.
Yeah, but then the other games are winnable when you think about like playing the Lakers twice. Both
Sure.
those games are winnable.
Sure, but you are going to be going like, I mean, even just the stretch. All right, you play Oklahoma City next, but then you have to go the Kings, Golden State, and Milwaukee. 3 games in a row. That's
I'll
brutal.
push for the Sun. I'll push for the Suns at 2 though.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it. I don't believe it'll happen, but I'll let you guys. If you guys both think that's the reality, then plug them in there at the 2.
Kings or Suns?
I'm gonna tiebreak here, Phoenix,
Wow. Okay.
Or-
Fine. I'm cool with that.
and then Sacramento here.
Yeah. Do we envision a scenario where the Grizzlies fall even further than that? Because I don't. I just don't think there's enough time.
I don't think there is either. If the Grizzlies are going to play some of the tanking teams like Houston or
Mhm.
Oklahoma City, Orlando, Detroit, any of those teams.
They're 5.5 up on the Warriors now, so I really can't imagine that swing happening. I think it goes Memphis. Then realistically, I do think the Warriors are going to be the 5,
And
which is
Steph Curry just came back.
which is just an awesome first round matchup because those 2 teams after last season they don't like each other.
No, they don't.
So
But I think no matter who Memphis plays in any series, it's going to be really tough for them. I also think it's important to think about this 4-5 matchup. I was watching ESPN the other day, and they were talking like, okay, so the Nuggets beat whoever comes out of the play-in at 8, and then they go on to the next round, and they got to play like Golden State. They got to play Phoenix, Memphis, right? They have all these point guards who are going to really expose Jokic in a pick and roll. So, like, I think it's really important this 4-5 matchup. Like, is that something you want if you have a Steph Curry? Is that something you want if you have a Ja Morant? Right. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, I do. I actually think I know we've been saying for so long that the West is so deep and there's so many good teams and that the playoffs are going to be this gauntlet. I actually think the East is going to be the same way, and I'll wait until we start talking about the Eastern Conference to like really get into that. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these first round matchups are tough, but then the second round ones, my God, it's just going to be brutal. But all right, here's the fun part of the conversation. So we agree the Warriors are probably going to be the 5, especially they just got Steph back today. I know they lost to the Lakers, but like Steph's first game back, whatever. Who's going to be 6? Because this is such a tight race for the 6th spot.
I'm trying to think like
The Timberwolves currently have it, and they're a half game up on the Mavericks, and they're a full game up on the Clippers.
yeah.
I think it's the Clippers, personally.
Do you think Karl Anthony Towns comes back?
I don't know. It's a weird spot. Like, I think it's so weird that he hasn't been playing. Like, I thought this was supposed to be only like a 2-month injury when it happened, and he's still out. So if they're going to bring him back before the playoffs, it's got to happen soon. You got to give him time to like really ease back in.
I could see the Clippers moving up then, because I don't think the Mavericks necessarily have the compatibility, the chemistry to move up out of the play-in. I think it would be hard for them.
No, I mean, I think everything we've seen from the Mavericks is that like who'd they beat? They beat on Friday. Let me pull it up. Where Luka and Kyrie combined for 80 plus.
They beat the Sixers?
Yeah, yes, when they beat the Sixers. It took just a heroic effort from both of them to kind of narrowly beat that team. And granted, the Sixers are a good team. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm not trying to be negative. But Like if that's the only way you're going to be able to sustainably beat teams, because they've struggled everywhere else. They've lost more games than they've won in the Kyrie era.
Hmm.
Um, it really strikes me as something where they're going to have to be perfect offensively to beat teams. And if not, they're in trouble, which is why I do think they're going to land firmly in the play-in. And I'll go even one further. I think there's a chance they're not going to have home court in the play-in. I mean, I do think it's a little strange, but like they're only 2 games up on the Lakers. They're only a game and a half up on the Jazz and Pelicans. It wouldn't shock me if just the way the schedule ends, like that other teams catch them. It
Yeah.
wouldn't.
It's so interesting. Like when you get from 6 through the Lakers, right? The Lakers are at 11.
Lakers are at 11.
Like this 6 through 11 can end in so many different ways. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it's all so close. I mean, I realistically think it's going to be some combination of the Clippers, Timberwolves. Clippers or Timberwolves are probably going to be 6. I just think there's enough cohesion there, and like there's just less question marks around
I
those
want to
teams.
I want to put the Timberwolves in at 6.
I want to put the Timberwolves in at 6 too. And here's why it's the tiebreaker with the Clippers. I just think them like totally overhauling their roster at the deadline for no reason, moving Luke Kennard, bringing in Eric Gordon, bringing in Russell Westbrook for literally no reason, and starting him. Like they've been bad since the deadline. Objectively, that team has been much worse. And we were saying a while back, like they were figuring things out. I'd say in January they looked like a force to be reckoned with, especially when everyone was playing. That's why like I don't understand a lot of the changes they made at all. So I do. I think the Timberwolves, with or without Cat, probably hang on to 6. As crazy as that sounds.
I'm a
Do
yeah. I'm amazed to think that. I don't know. Part of me thinks that the cream will just rise and the Clippers will wind up getting out of the play-in. I think out of all of the play-in teams, they're the best by far.
Definitely.
yes.
And I talk about like question marks, like the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah, I just think the Minnesota at the beginning of the season they weren't gelling well together with the addition of Rudy Gobert, but I think Cat being out has been a blessing in disguise where now they can kind of play through Anthony
And
Edwards and just allow one big to be on the floor at a time. Because I don't think the Cat Gobert combo was a good one.
also sitting here looking at this, like they're question mark. Anthony Edwards is great, and they're kind of tough. This team, the Kings Timberwolves could break any different way if that
Oh
were
yeah.
the first round matchup.
I don't think the Timberwolves are a bad team. I just don't think they necessarily have the ceiling when it comes to their stars, you know?
No, and I mean you're also just hemorrhaging money into your big men who don't play well together. Like it is hard to win like that.
It's going to be
Yeah.
cool when they get a king's ransom for Cat when they trade him.
That's
It's
like
going to be this
probably
off
the
season.
it's probably the only reality in their future. I mean, we've seen they are literally winning games with Gobert and not Cat. And like Edwards seems to have adjusted and is playing well in the system. And like I do think that's realistically their only path forward. You shed D'Lo for Mike Conley. Mike Conley will be around for another year, I think, which is good for them. I think that's a good presence to have. And then from there, you can pivot. Like you can pivot a couple years down the line and like still be good, but build around Anthony Edwards now. Um, but for the time being, you're right. I think Cat's probably on the way out. The writing's on the wall. All right. So since we put the Timberwolves at 6, do we want to put the Clippers at 7? Probably.
I do.
Okay. So do I. So I'll agree with that.
They're only a half game up of the half game back of the Mavs.
Right. Yeah, they're half game back in the Mavs, and like I do think they're just better objectively, even though
I
they're
think
500.
I think I want to put the Mavs in next here at 8.
Yes.
I just think it's probably the most likely outcome. I think the Jazz are probably going to lose more. I think the Pelicans, if they don't get Zion back, will continue to lose. I think it's probably going to go Clippers, Mavericks, Lakers, Pelicans. If I mean, because the Lakers are only a half game back of both of them,
Mhm.
so I think the Lakers pass them both, and then the Pelicans are just better than the Jazz. I don't know. Do you guys take any issue with that?
I like the Lakers in at 9.
I think that's probably where they end up, and I think there is a chance they beat the Mavericks. I do,
I,
or like I think
I
there's a chance they move up above the Mavericks.
I
Really?
think the number 10 here is really, really difficult because there are teams here that are looking to be bad, and there's a team here that's looking to be good. And I
Portland.
think right. So I think if like, do you put faith in Portland to say like they can outpace the Thunder, who are now going to be managing SGA's minutes? Are they able to get past the Jazz, who are currently the highest rated tanking team, and then
Right.
like the Pelicans? I know we talk about Zion, but like even Brandon Ingram hasn't been healthy, which
No.
makes it
And when
even
he has
harder.
played, he hasn't been great. So
Same thing with CJ McCollum. He wasn't the CJ McCollum from last year.
no.
So
No, and that's why, I would be I just feel like Portland, I didn't like their deadline moves. I thought they got worse. Like I didn't
mm,
understand the Josh Hart trade if you really were adamant about trying to make the playoffs. That said, Dame is having the best season of his career. By like and I don't think it's particularly close. He just had 71, which
mm.
it's funny we haven't recorded since, but that the fact that that's happened twice now this season is insane. But whatever. I do think they're probably in trouble because I don't think they're deep enough. I think it's only Dame. Like Simons had a great start to the year and he slowed down. I don't overly believe in Jeremy Grant as
isn't
much.
isn't Simons and Nurkic, aren't they both out for extended time? I think
Yeah, but that's my point. Like they've just totally fallen off, and they're relying on Dame to carry them. And it's like he's doing an okay job considering it's just him against the world. But
yeah,
yeah,
but okay, so 1.5 games back of 10. Do you think they can push up into the play-in?
Let me look at New
so
Orleans.
we think the Lakers and Blazers would both jump the Jazz and Pelicans. I have a hard time believing it.
So do you think the Pelicans or the Jazz? What were you gonna say,
Personally, I
Mike?
think it's probably the Pelicans, but
What are you looking at, Mike?
The Pelicans schedule.
And who are they playing?
I can pull this bad boy up.
Let's see.
All right, I got
Brooklyn.
it.
Their next 3 games are Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Utah. They could win all 3.
Are you looking at the Pelicans?
Yeah.
The
Oh, I'm
Pelicans,
sorry. That was October.
yeah. The next 3 are Sacramento, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Portland, the Lakers. They're literally playing all the teams in their orbit for those last spots. Um, but then they have 2 against Houston, San Antonio, Charlotte, then the Clippers, then Portland again, then Golden State, Denver, the Clippers, the Kings, Grizzlies, Knicks, Timberwolves. Wow. Those last like
That's the
10 games are
Pelicans.
brutal. That's the Pelicans. Those last 10 games are brutal. So let's say they have 20 games left. Those first 10 aren't too bad, and they're all like kind of in their orbit or much worse. And
Yeah,
then that last 10 is brutal. Good Lord.
I guess my thinking is, are Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum going to be healthy, and are they going to play their best basketball?
Yeah.
Yes. I
That's
don't know what
way
you guys
too, that's a huge question mark. I don't know.
for the 10
I
seed. Can we do some wishful thinking and say it's Dame? It's just more fun to have Dame in. What do you guys think?
I think it's more fun to have Dame in too.
Yeah, I just don't think it's happening. But fine, we can put him there. But then I want the Pelicans right behind him because I do think the Pelicans have a better chance than the Jazz.
Yes.
Spelled Trailblazers wrong. Trail and Blazers.
Trail and Blazers.
Uh,
Yeah, let's get the Pelicans in there.
and then you think the Jazz are here in at 12?
I think the Jazz, yeah. And then who cares after that? Everyone
Okay.
stinks. Yeah, it's gonna be OKC, the Spurs, and Rockets, but
Who do you think is going to end up worse, the Spurs or the Rockets?
the Rockets. The Rockets control their destiny now. So they're probably gonna have the worst record again.
I find the Rockets to be so interesting because I feel like they have all these young pieces, but
Yeah,
haven't really been able to string anything together. Maybe that's because they're just still so young, or
I think it's a
um,
mix of both. I think it's definitely a mix of both. I think they've missed on some talent and like a lot of like the cohesion. Like a lot of the young players, I feel like just didn't gel.
mm,
A lot of that could change if they get Victor, because I feel like that alone is enough to restructure your entire franchise and move some things around and make changes. And I know we joked about it before. If Harden really is adamant about coming back and like wants to, that changes everything. Victor and Harden, with everything else they currently have there, is such a different look than they have now.
yeah,
Um,
but like let's say Harden comes back, what does that mean for Kevin Porter Jr.? What does that mean for Jalen Green?
I think
Um,
Jalen Green stays. I think Kevin Porter Jr. Can pack his bags. Honestly, or yeah, I don't know. You adjust a little bit, but that's probably what happens.
yeah, I just think it's so interesting, like Harden coming back. Who do they keep? Who do they don't? Because obviously you want to surround Harden with like a scoring threat and a roller, and And then like shooting, obviously, like a similar type of team build you would put around like a LeBron or another type of superstar like that. So,
Yeah.
or even, and do you even trust Harden to be that guy
Well,
anymore? So,
no. And I mean, this was a conversation I figured we'd have in the offseason, but the Sixers are probably, if he wants a max, like the Sixers probably have to be a little nervous about giving it to him. It's
mhm.
kind of like a lose-lose situation for them. You either pay him and that contract ages horribly, or you don't pay him and he walks. So
Yeah,
it's not a great spot if you're the Sixers, which this actually, I like this segue into the Eastern Conference because that's who we're going to talk about now. But the Sixers have a ton of pressure on them. They kind of have to win this year, or
mhm.
else like they're really in trouble. But so let's
I
start at the top of the East, and then
sure.
we'll eventually get to them.
I think the
Um,
Buck. I guess it's so close between the Bucks and the Celtics that anybody could come out down into first. But Bucks have obviously been super hot lately.
yeah, they lost yesterday, but that's fine. It was a
I
close game.
watched, but it was a close game. But I watched them really blow it. Did you guys watch it?
Yeah, but that happened. I mean, they won 16 straight before that.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know.
I'm not
I watched
worried.
I watched Giannis make a couple mistakes, and then like their last attempt at a shot, they didn't even get the ball to him. I just thought it was weird. I was shocked. It threw me off.
Yeah, I
Isn't
mean,
Chris Middleton their shot taker though? Like at the end of the
Wasn't even
game.
Drew Holiday took a bullshit three, and
Uh,
it's so weird.
yeah, you
And
don't
it
love that.
was really strange. They didn't even really have
I
a
st- I still think you're putting too much stock into one game they lost when they won 16 straight before that, and we're like dominating teams.
felt like a playoff game. That's why it was so.
Sure, but like they've lost playoff games before. They lost playoff games on their way to win the championship. Like teams lose games. I'm not worried. I think they are the best team in the East. And like I gotta be honest, I think of it also in this perspective. I am a Knicks fan, and I look at the teams in the East of like who I would be most afraid of if the Knicks had to play them in the playoffs, and the Bucks are far and away the number one. Like
Mhm.
the other teams, there are some that scare me, and I think there are some great teams in the East. I know I was saying before about how I think a lot of these playoff series in the East are going to be pretty crazy. Um, I just think the Bucks are in a tier of their own. I've thought it all year. Once they got healthy, which they're starting to, and they added a couple key additions at the deadline,
mhm.
they're better now. Like they really are the team I think a lot of us thought they were going to be when they came into the season.
I think the Bucks have a couple of flaws. I think the first thing is the speed at which Chris Middleton can come back and look like himself.
He's getting
Obviously
there. He's really
he
getting there.
he is, but you remember he was a 24 point per game scorer for them, right? And he was hitting a lot of really tough shots. The games that I've seen him play, I think he's just kind of looked unengaged, or just he's playing scared almost. Like I think I'm going to hurt myself again. Which if you do that, I think it becomes very difficult to regain your confidence. So
There's definitely truth in that.
and when we talk about like teams wanting to attack Jokic in a pick and roll, I think when we talk about the Knicks, I think the Bucks are a very scary team because we know Tibbs isn't going to take a center off the floor, which
Right.
allows the Bucks to play that double big lineup with Giannis and Brook Lopez on the floor, and then the Knicks are going to have all sorts of spacing issues.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, I
so
also don't just want to look at them through the lens of the Knicks, but yes, like that's the thing. The Bucks have so many different combinations they could throw out.
mhm.
It's a scary team. They're so
Yeah.
versatile. So
And I think the way of beating the Bucks is to try and attack those Brook Lopez minutes. Can you force them to play small, play Giannis at the 5, and then when Giannis is on a rest, can you attack Brook Lopez
yeah,
as the backup center? So again, there are ways to beat these teams. I think in the regular season, when teams aren't really that focused on like attacking matchups and more just like keeping the rotation steady, I think the Bucks will end up holding on to the first here.
I also think the Bucks are going to be the one. Let's lock that in. Unless Michael can make a case for the Celtics.
No, I can't.
All right. We got Bucks on, but I think we all agree the Celtics are 2.
Yes.
All right, cool. I think these two are realistically in a tier of their own. I think they are definitively the best teams in the East. That said, the Celtics don't nearly scare me as much as I think they did back in December.
Their role players stopped shooting like 50% from three.
Well, that's definitely part of it. Yeah, I mean, you don't have Grant Williams and Al Horford being Steph Curry, so
exactly. I think we talked about it before we started recording, but Malcolm Brogdon possibly being Sixth Man of the Year is huge for them.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
and they have defensive pieces at the forward spots, right? Like Grant Williams is a big body, Al Horford is a big body. Can Robert Williams be special? I think obviously a defensive player of the year candidate last year, but is he gonna play that high level basketball again at some point? And hopefully he does. And then
Right.
I think the Celtics again are very scary. Another one of those guys coming back from injury where we're like, is he playing scared because he's scared to get injured again, or is he just going out there and really playing basketball? So
Right. All right. But so we got these two in here, and here's where it gets a little more fun because
it's going to be the Sixers at 3. I think the East is very tier. You have tier 1 Bucks, Celtics, tier 2 Cavs, and then you have like playoff teams playing teams and the rest.
Right. So I think actually 3 through 5 is more of a toss up than we're letting it on.
I
don't think anyone overtakes. I don't think anyone realistically overtakes 3. But I'm just saying I think those teams are. It's similar to how like teams had dug themselves a hole. Like Philly just is up a certain amount of games, but like are they definitively that much better than Cleveland, New York? I'll go one step further. The Heat I'd throw in there. Like I think those 4 teams are all in a similar tier where I wouldn't go into a series confident in any one of those teams against each other.
Yes.
Would you?
No, I think Cavs, Knicks, Heat are all very even.
And I'm including the Sixers in that.
I don't know about the Sixers.
Sixers have one of the best players in the league. Like
I understand that. You're taking
MVP, Embiid.
The Sixers are alone in their tier.
Mitch cannot guard Embiid. Adebayo cannot guard Embiid. And even like if you want to think about like,
but all these teams have flaws too. The Sixers have their flaws. I mean, their role players are not as good as they expected them to be. But they saved all this money for PJ Tucker for him to not make a shot all season.
I think it would be pretty close to 100%. I think it'd be pretty close to 100% of people if you said the Sixers are playing the Cavs, who's going to win that series. I think everyone's almost 100%. The Sixers playing the Knicks. I think 100% would say the Sixers.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying I don't think it's as...
I think the difference between them is like when I think about the 76ers, I kind of they're like a first round lock. They're going to win whatever matchup they have in the first round because they're not playing the Bucks and they're not playing the Celtics. And I think they're going to win whatever matchup they have. Whereas like I could potentially see the Cavs losing in the first round. I could potentially see the Knicks losing in the first round. I could see the Heat losing in the first round.
That's true. But like I wouldn't be like totally surprised if the Sixers lost in the first round. I wouldn't.
I would be a little surprised.
I think the East is a lot tighter than people are giving it credit for. Personally.
I think what scares me the most as a Knicks fan is Donovan Mitchell playing 4 games in the Garden.
Well, that's if they get home. So who do you think gets the 4?
I mean, I think the Knicks have a chance, but I want the Cavs there.
I think it's real. I mean, Knicks are only, a game and a half back of Cleveland right now. And they're a game behind in the loss column and 2 back in the win column. I mean, I think odds are the Knicks don't catch them. And so I think honestly, 4 and 5, it's going to go Cleveland and the Knicks, and then the Heat are going to be 6. I think if we're being honest with ourselves, that's probably the way this is going to shake out, right?
Yeah. Cleveland, Knicks, Miami.
Heat. Yeah.
Heat.
Even though the Nets are currently sitting at 6, I just think the Nets are falling off.
100%.
Yeah. And then the play-in is a totally different story. But I think realistically, the top 6 teams, there might be a little jostling for position. But like I do think odds are Cleveland hangs on to the 4, the Knicks are going to be the 5, and then the Heat are the 6. Those are some fun-ass series. I gotta say. Do you
agree with this, Mike, with the 4, 5, 6?
I do.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Sixers Heat, Butler against the Sixers is so much fun.
On the Sixers is great. Like that
Butler against the Sixers, the Knicks playing the Cavs in like the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes is so much fun. And then whatever the hell happens with the Bucks and Celtics, they're gonna beat up on whoever wins the play-in. Like, but those 2 series right there are gonna be unreal first round matchups. And they're gonna set up even crazier second round ones because it's just Titans at the top of the East. My God. But all right, so let's go 7 through 10. Who do we think fills out the rest of the play-in?
Well, I think the first spot is, do you think the Nets are going to be in at 7, or do you think the Hawks could pass them and take the top playing spot?
The Hawks are 3.5 back of the Nets, but there's plenty of time. And
but the Hawks are trying to win.
The Hawks fired their head coach. They made changes, and they've been winning a little bit. I mean,
I regretfully think that the Hawks wind up there.
I mean the Nets are 3-7 in their last 10, and granted the Hawks are only 500. They're 5-5 in their last 10, but
I think
they haven't fired their coach
the Nets
more
are
than 3 years
bad
now.
because
Yeah.
they had Kyrie and Kevin Durant on the
Hmm.
team. They have all these nationally televised games scheduled for them, and for some reason ESPN can't flex them out. So I've been watching Brooklyn Nets basketball, and it's almost painful.
Yeah.
It's just tough. You have a lot of guys who excelled in their roles, and now you're like, oh, here,
But they have
more
no
opportunity.
playmaking.
Yeah.
They play four guys who are like off the ball shooter, attack, closeout scorers, and
Right.
it hurts. Like they have nobody to initiate a play, and
No.
like their defense is so ass because again they don't have anybody as like a point of attack defender. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I agree. I think the Hawks probably jump them. I think it's not so far fetched to say the Raptors do too. The Raptors are only a half game back of the Hawks, and since they've gotten Pirtle, they've looked better. It's a weird thing to say.
So then here in at 9, we think Brooklyn.
I think Brooklyn, and then I mean, I don't know. It's toss up, but probably the Wizards at 10.
Yeah, I think so.
But I will say it's irrelevant because whoever gets it, it's probably gonna be the Hawks and the Raptors to get out of this whole situation.
So then the first team to miss the playoffs is the Pacers.
The Pacers or the Bulls, they're both trying to get there. I think it's a toss up of. I mean, they currently have the same record.
Chicago's so bad. Chicago actually just lost to Indiana.
This is so funny. They're both 29-36. They're both 18-15 at home and 11-21 on the road.
No, but Tyrese Halliburton just had a game winner against the Bulls.
You're right. So that's the differentiator there.
So now the Pacers are 2 games up with the Bulls.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I think we leave it like that. And then the bottom is actually probably set because the Magic aren't horrific. And then the Hornets and Pistons have lost their 2 best players, or they've lost their best player each. So I think that honestly, this probably holds down at the bottom.
Actually, Detroit has their best player playing still.
Yes. Jaden Ivey, definitely their best player.
I think I spelled Charlotte wrong.
Actually, I can't really read it, but that looks right to me.
That's right.
Yeah, you're
God, did I do it?
You got it.
It's one of those cities that I always spell wrong. I'm like, is it 2 L's? Is it 2 T's? Is it 2 R's? You know?
Yeah, but they're bad without LaMelo. Like they're going to lose a ton of games. They might not win another game this season. Honestly, they're pretty horrible. I mean, they are. They're literally terrible.
It's tough. It's tough.
There's no sugarcoating it. They're down bad.
All right. So let's move on to the awards then.
Okay. Well, wait. Who do we think comes out of who's in the Eastern Conference Final? Who's in the finals and who wins? I think it's going to be Bucks. I think it's going to be Bucks and Celtics. Realistically,
I'm a big Bucks Celtics guy too.
I could see the Sixers beating the Celtics though, just because I think I could see it.
It's going to be Bucks Boston, which
it is going to be Bucks Boston.
I root for chaos. Like the Sixers getting there would be exciting, but I wouldn't want that to happen at the expense of the Bucks, at least. But I don't think they would have to play the Sixers.
Well, I also the Sixers are going to get hosed because they're going to have to play the Heat in the first round, the Celtics in the second round, and then if they win, the Bucks again. Like they're going to have the hardest road out of anyone to win a championship. Honestly, that's a gauntlet.
I think the Western. I think we talked about this last night. I think we texted briefly about who's going to be in the finals, and we all put down Bucks. So it's good to see that we agreed Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals, but our Western Conference champions were all different. So
I think that all right. So who do we think has a shot of making the Western Conference Final? Because I think you could make the case for like
Los Angeles Clippers.
6 teams. I think it's going to be well. Also, we have to consider matchups, so that's another hard thing. But I think the Nuggets have a shot. I think the Suns have a shot. Realistically, I don't envision the Kings or Grizzlies getting there, or the Timberwolves. I could see the Warriors. I could see the Timberwolves. I could see the Warriors. I could see the Clippers, and then all hell be damned. You can't convince me otherwise. If the Lakers make the playoffs, you can convince me that they can get there. You just can. Because if LeBron gets healthy by that point, I'm not going to. They have looked so good since they got rid of Westbrook and brought in like the role players who can actually
both LA teams, Warriors, Suns, Nuggets. Those are my 5.
I think there's 5 teams you could convince me could get in, but I think realistically it's Nuggets, Suns.
Who you on, Mike?
No, I think the Kings.
Okay, so 6 with the Kings.
I think their lack of experience holds them back. But yeah, I think they've been one of the most consistent teams all year, regardless of conference or anything. The Nuggets and the Kings, honestly, I think are the most consistent teams in the NBA all season.
I think if you look at the Kings' second round matchup, I think that's where it gets difficult.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, even their first round one is not easy.
No,
But
definitely
yes.
not easy, but I think the series is 100% winnable for the Kings.
Yeah.
I think the Timberwolves are a good team. I don't know if they have the talent to beat the Kings.
Right.
Especially
And if they somehow get the Suns as their second round matchup, which seems like it might be a reality, or there is like the weird parallel universe where the Grizzlies hang on to 2 and they're the 3, and somehow they're playing the Grizzlies in the second round. So you never know how it's really going to unfold. But if that's the case, their first round matchup is probably much harder anyway. So I don't know. There's a lot of variability, but I would be surprised.
So my final prediction for the Western Conference Finals is going to be
Do
Clippers.
we agree the Nuggets are getting there?
Nuggets.
Yeah, I think the Nuggets definitely get there. I think they're the best team in the West.
Nuggets, Suns.
I also think Nuggets, Suns. I know at the beginning of the year I said it was going to be the Clippers, but the Russ experiment and their trade deadline has done enough for me to think they're not making it.
All right, I'll give in for the Phoenix Suns here. I believe enough in that roster. I think they might not have the depth, but when it comes playoff time, when you shorten that rotation, they're going to be fine.
Booker and Durant is a very crazy pairing,
I don't
and like a hard playoff team to stop.
I think this is the most space Devin Booker will ever have in his entire career. So I think it'll be good to see how he takes advantage of it. And obviously, as they continue to play, they'll start to feed more off each other. So we've seen them have good games together. It's only going to get easier.
Oh yeah, I totally agree. Who do we think comes out of both conferences?
In these matchups, I think it's going to end up being Bucks Nuggets.
I think it's going to be Bucks Nuggets too, because I think the depth of the Nuggets gets them through the Suns.
I agree.
And then we have these 2 international titans final.
I also think it's really important to remember that, like in the Denver Nuggets Phoenix Suns matchup, how many minutes does DeAndre Ayton play? And how does that allow Jokic to play defense and stay on the floor?
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, people have always kind of said he gets played off the court in the playoffs and everything, but at the same time, like he is so efficient. Like his numbers, sure, they might be a little lower than they are in the regular season, but everyone's typically are in the playoffs.
Sure.
Like his efficiency doesn't drop off though. I mean,
yeah, I'd be more concerned if it was the Warriors, right? You play Jokic into space, and now he's got like a one-on-one with Curry. It's over, right?
That second round matchup almost scares me more than the if they see the Suns in the finals or
I agree.
Western Conference Finals. But all right, so what do we think? Bucks Nuggets final?
It doesn't feel that simple to me, but I'm fine with going with that.
It's never this simple, and a lot can change. Someone might get hurt. There's gonna be weird things that happen.
Okay, so the Nuggets Bucks play. Who's winning?
The Bucks. The Bucks are winning. I'm pretty confident in that. I think I said it at the beginning of the year too, and I think that's why I'm biased.
I think I agree with Bucks.
Because at the end of the day,
they're also the hottest team in the NBA right now.
I also don't think the Nuggets will be able to guard Giannis that well.
Yeah, I think the double big lineup again comes into play, where if Jokic is always on the floor, then you get to play Giannis and Lopez together. And I think Giannis does way more than Aaron Gordon could ever dream of.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do
we all agree Milwaukee here?
I agree.
I think. What do you think our biggest oversight is? I think it's got to be the Warriors, right?
I think it's got to be who.
I thought about
Western
the Warriors
Conference
potentially making it. The problem is the Warriors, if they are in the 4-5 game, they're going to run it to the Nuggets.
The Lakers game today. The Lakers game today was kind of questionable for me. It's like no LeBron, no D'Lo, and they struggled to beat an Anthony Davis-led Lakers team, especially with Curry back.
Yeah, and it was his first game back. But I also think the Warriors are just. I was watching it. They're not that good.
Yeah,
I think they lack some of the depth they've always had on those championship runs.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they had Wiggins back, it would be a completely different story.
But I'm never going to sleep on them. And like honestly, like Matthew said, I'm not going to sleep on the Lakers too. Like if LeBron's actually healthy.
Yeah.
That's a huge question mark though, and I don't think we can rely on it. So I think I'm comfortable with what we ended up with here.
Okay.
I'm happy locking it in.
All right, let's move on to awards then.
Okay.
I have a feeling we're going to be unanimous, at least for the first 2.
MVP. It's got to be Jokic again. Jokic.
So here's the thing. I know we're going to say it's got to be Jokic. I think Giannis has made a case to be in the conversation and close. No?
I don't think you can win the finals and be the MVP in the same year.
I don't know about that. I think that's definitely happened at points. I would need to go dig through.
100%, but maybe like Shaq did it.
I'm going off of their current season right now. Like as
I think Jokic is. I mean, he is. To me, he wins. But I don't love. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I forget what podcast I was listening to, but they were talking about it and they were saying, like, all right, who's your MVP? And they go Jokic, and then they're like upset when he has like 90 whatever percent of first overall votes, and it's like it doesn't feel like that much of a runaway because there have been other great guys. But like, if you had a vote, you would vote for him. And so like that's why it's like I wish there was like some way to like steer it where I'm like Jokic is the MVP, but like Giannis is right there, and you could say Embiid is really close too. Like it doesn't feel as much of a runaway as other years.
Can I give you why I think he's the MVP?
Why?
When you watch him versus when you watch Giannis, you just feel like Giannis is like trying as hard as he can and getting all these rebounds and dunking, and it's super intense. I swear to you, when I'm watching Jokic play, it doesn't seem like he knows what his stats are, and it also seems like each game he goes in and he's like, let me see if I can many times pass first. Like it seems like he's playing games within the game. It's like a whole other level of like
it's kind of effortless, but that's also why the advanced analytics support him. And that's why, I know people get so upset with the analytics, and that's not how you play basketball, and it doesn't say everything, but like, yeah, fine. You're describing the eye test. Everything I'm talking about is more analytics based and like just the numbers. They support him. He's the most efficient player. I mean, he's a machine. I think he deserves it.
When you watch Giannis, you're like amazed by the athleticism and like dominance or whatever. And when you watch Jokic, you're watching like the Globetrotters, but a professional basketball player. It's like magic, kind of. So
are we all agreed it's Jokic, but like with a
Giannis
an honorable mention to everyone else? Yeah.
I mean, we could put you down as Giannis.
I'm not. He was my preseason pick, and barring some crazy run to end the year, I just don't think he can catch Jokic.
Okay, so then rookie of the year, are we all going to agree on Paolo again?
Paolo.
Yeah.
Matherin's close, I'd say, but like, no, it's Paolo.
Okay, that's how you spell it?
Looks right to me.
I'm going to go with Jaden Ivey here, just to spice things up.
Just for fun? No, I think that's a throwaway, Luke. I think that's a mistake.
It could be, but I guess we'll find out at the end of the year.
All right. So then what's next? What do we got? Defensive player of
the year?
Jaren.
It's going to be Jaren Jackson Jr., especially after like that weird Reddit post that came out that like they were like cooking the books with his blocks, but it turned out he actually was just blocking a ton of shots. It's going to be him. Brooke Lopez was up there for a while. I think people said Claxton or Giannis too, but like, no. It's going to be Jaren Jackson Jr., and I don't really like it.
I don't love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick Claxton had a chance for sure at some point, but it gets tough.
All right, so far we're pretty aligned.
Most improved.
I feel like this is an automatic pick.
SGA.
No. What? Are you kidding?
Why would I be kidding?
Lauri Markkanen.
Oh, that's a good one.
Markkanen far and away is the most improved player this year.
I think it's SGA by a mile.
How? Markkanen was like getting cut, but not getting cut, but like wasn't wanted on teams. And then now he's an all-star?
Yeah, but are the Jazz any good?
They were before they traded away. They're good players. The Jazz were actually good this year, and he was leading the charge. Whatever. Fine.
SGA averaging over 30 points and became like a bona fide.
He was already really good. Like it.
He became a top 12, I would say.
When you think about it from a pure statistics standpoint and also like accolades they earned throughout the season, Lauri Markkanen was averaging 15 last year, 25 points this year, all-star.
I think it's easily
up, assists and defense and whatnot.
You know, my dark horse, he's not going to win.
Shea did average 25 last year.
My dark horse, who could be most improved, would be Jalen Brunson. I mean, what he's done since January, where he's basically averaging 30 points a game.
But we saw him be this guy in the
That's the only thing
playoffs.
holding him back. But I'm saying like doing it for a full season like this and carrying a team. I don't know. I don't think he's going to win. I still think Markkinen is far and away. I can't believe you guys are disagreeing with me on that. I think he's so wow. This is our first category where we are just not even close to aligned.
I think Tyrese Halliburton, kind of like being the best player on the Pacers and having the Pacers be a surprise, decent team says a lot towards him being most improved.
Yeah. All right.
Sixth man of the year.
I don't know. I'm gonna put Brogdon.
I think Brogdon has consistently been most of the season, which is probably why he's going to get it.
Oh,
I think it's probably Brogdon. You can make the case for Norm Powell. I so badly want it to be Emmanuel Quickly, but it won't be. I'm going to go with Brogdon. Luke, you seem to be a little more pensive.
I like Norman Powell up the Clippers. I think
I also think
I,
Westbrook had a shot if they didn't start him now on the Clippers. He was putting up good numbers off the bench for the Lakers, but like he was never going to win.
I think this is one of the ones I think about a lot. Thinking about like who comes off the bench. Because when you really think about it, like the sixth man of the year has always been this guy. He comes in off the bench, he puts in 20, like a Lou Will, Jordan Clarkson when he wanted, and Jamal Crawford. Like those guys were scoring 20 points a game. And I feel like the six men this year are like a very balanced player where like not only are they scorers, not only are they competent offensively, but they also play defense, they pass, so it's like less like it's hard to tell this year, in my opinion.
Yeah. So where are you landing? We're
I think
both
I want
going
to go.
Brogdon.
I want to go Norman Powell.
All right. I like it.
We're going with Brogdon.
Yeah.
All right. These lists are totally changing. It's funny. Coach
Very
of the
different.
year. Coach of the year. Let's not revisit who I picked at the beginning of the season.
Is he still a coach?
Yeah, he might be at some point.
I see.
Yeah, I picked
Mike
Ime.
Brown.
That was a mistake. Mike Brown
Mike Brown.
So I'm between Mike Brown and then I'm gonna go with the new Celtics head coach. I'm going Joe Mazzulla just because I think a lot of people going into the season when Ime did have to step down or get fired or whatever you want to call it. I think a lot of people probably said the Celtics would take a hit. They've been in first most of the year, and then now the Bucks went on a 16-game win streak to catch them, which is kind of out of their hands. I mean, Missoula's done everything you could possibly ask an interim coach to do.
I'm going to stick with my pick from the original.
Really?
Yeah, and I think Joe Mazzulla obviously has done a great job this year. Mike Brown has done a great job this year. But I think my reasoning behind picking Taylor Jenkins at the beginning of the year was that this is an award that gets handed to the people who should have won it last year.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that the Grizzlies will still continue to be good this year. I know right now they're at 2. They might drop a little farther. According to our predictions, they're going to be at 4. I still think the Grizzlies being decent and him pretty much deserving it last year means he's going to win it this year. The same type of way Monty Williams won it the year last year and so on and so forth. So
that's definitely, there's a string of that. There's a precedent for this award. One other guy, though, that I think we're not talking about is Jacques Vaughn. And I think if the Nets did keep Kyrie and KD, he would absolutely 100%. Be in the conversation too. But now they're losing games again. And it's like not even his fault they're losing games, but
yeah,
he did really well when he took over.
I'm also interested to understand why Steve Nash didn't really work out because I don't understand the difference in the coaching philosophies between Jacques Vaughn and Steve Nash.
I think it literally is just a personality thing. And
yeah, which to me is so weird, right? But
yeah, I don't know. So what else do we got? What's next? Scoring champ? I got to look up who's leading the NBA
I think
scoring.
At this point, it's pretty obvious. I think at the top we have Luka, Embiid, Lillard, Giannis. But Luka's 33.4, Embiid is 33 flat, Damian Lillard 32.3, and Giannis 31.1. I think the biggest challenge here is thinking about how many games have been played and how many games will be played.
Right.
So
those averages aren't going to shift that much. I think it's going to be Luka, and my reasoning behind that is the way the Mavericks play now after their trade for Kyrie is like it's got to be fast paced and we got to score a lot if we're going to beat teams.
Yeah.
And so they're going to ask
And
him to have to continue to do that. Whereas Embiid can kind of relax a little bit. Dame is probably going to have to up it if they want to make the play in. But he's pretty much doing everything he can at this point anyway. So I don't know. And then I can't imagine Giannis catching up either. So I really do think it's between Doncic and Embiid, and I think Doncic is going to go off.
I think if the only way someone catches Luka is if someone's averaging like 50 over the last 15 games, you know?
Yeah.
So
Michael, who do you think?
Agreed.
Luka? Yeah. That feels like a lock.
He's also going to have to do more to
Right.
secure his placing in the playoffs versus Embiid.
Agreed. All right, so now we're on to some less fun things. But who do we think wins the tank standings? I think it's the Rockets. They control their own destiny. So I think they're a half game up in the tank standings on Detroit. And then the Spurs are a game and a half back from them. I think it's going to be the Rockets. I think the Rockets are terrible.
according to Tankathon right now, Houston is in the lead with the worst record. Detroit is half a game ahead. San Antonio 1.5 ahead, and then Charlotte is 5 ahead of Houston.
Right.
I'm gonna go with the Spurs just to shake it up, and that's where I want him to go.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with Houston.
I'm going to stick with the Houston Rockets as well. I don't want Wembanyama going to Detroit only because
I think that would be an incredible pairing.
Yeah,
I think it would be a terrible pairing because like you have Jaden Ivey who's going to demand the ball all the time, all NBA Hall of Famer type player, and you just can't have all those.
Can't even
guys
hide
on the
your
same
bias
roster.
there. But no, I think Ivy, Cade, and Wemby are like a very good young
yeah,
core
they'd
to
be
put together. They all
100%.
their games are so complementary to one another that I think it would make a ton of sense.
I think it's also important to remember that Detroit has a lot more than just Cade and Ivy right now.
Oh yeah,
They have Wiseman, they have Bagley, they have
I mean they have a ton
Isaiah
of big men.
Stewart, they have Killian Hayes, so
Jalen
Duren. Yeah, so like a couple of those guys are going to end up
Oh yeah,
developing, especially underneath Dwayne Casey.
best record. Who do we like?
Milwaukee Bucks.
I'm gonna go with the Nuggets just because I think for them it's a little easier.
I'll go Nuggets too.
I think it's between the
Conference
two. I think it's between the two, and it's kind of a toss up. But I think they're like a little less injured currently. Their schedule does get easier now for the next like 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Nugs. And then worst record, I think probably feeds into what we were all just saying. I think it's the Rockets.
I think the Detroit Pistons will end up with a rich record, but the Rockets will get the first pick.
All right, I'm going Houston.
Houston.
And yeah, I mean a lot changes in the lottery, but this could be the one year where whoever is actually the worst team ends up with the guy.
The Dallas pick ends up being in the lottery, and then by some chance it's first. And
I think it's top 10 protected. Am I making that
oh,
up?
is it? That's so sad.
I think it is. I might be making that up. But I do think there are protections on it. All right. Well, this looks much different than it did in the beginning of the season. We did all right, but I mean, too much has changed.
We had the Bucks winning it at the beginning of the year.
We were consistent on the Bucks. Then Paolo, nothing's changed. Michael called Luka as the high scorer.
I think this might be broken because it says I had Paulo.
Well, I mean it's close.
Yeah, we're doing okay. Where do we have Phoenix? We had Phoenix at 5, and now we have them at 3.
Yeah, I mean it's all kind of close.
Clippers are way down there now. We almost got the Lakers pretty good. The Kings are farther up than we thought.
The Raptors we nailed. Oh, we gave the Bulls way more credit than we should have. And wow, we hated the Wizards. And the Wizards and Pacers are both much better than we thought.
I think I expected a lot out of LaMelo Ball,
Yeah.
and I wonder if Mikal Bridges had been thrown in jail or had legal issues yet when we made this list.
Yeah.
It might have been around the same time when we were like, "What's his status?"
Yeah.
So,
All right. I don't hate where we're at. All right. Do we have anything else we want to cover, or am I going to stop recording this podcast and watch the Knicks play the Boston Celtics on Sunday night?
Let's go Knicks.
Let's go to the Knicks.
All righty. Well, team, for those of you who have joined us, thank you for tuning in, and definitely dial in next time for more Hoop Troop basketball.